Nice to meet you,
Nice to
Hunter.
meet you.
All right. Let's get seated.
Oh, man.
Well, I'm glad to be here. It's my first time meeting you.
It's my first time meeting you too, pal. It's a pleasure. What's your name, by the way?
Sean. No, we've actually met before. This is not our first time meeting, but you're going to find out very quickly what happens when you sit down with someone you barely know and start to uncover their story, one episode at a time. Why chess and what about it unites two strangers navigating life?
These are the questions we will be answering on season 1 of One More.
Move at a time.
So, here we go.
Oh, that's real good.
Hell yeah. Well, welcome, guys, to the NF3 Podcast. I'm Hunter, and this is
Sean Smith.
the man, the myth, the legend, Sean. And today, this is our first episode of the podcast, which is crazy. Sean, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Sean Smith. I just turned 25. I've been 25 for less than a month, so it's a quarter of a century. But
Happy birthday, by the way.
a little bit belated birthday, but we're feeling good. And, 25 is one of those ages where people over the age of 30 think you're young, but people below 25 think you're old. So I'm just settling into that, finding the peace in it.
Nice. What do you do for work?
Currently, right now, I work in the cannabis industry. So all my California people out there, you guys, I do my job to service you and make sure that, the ZA stays for the people.
Amen to that, brother. Amen.
Amen to that. What about you, my friend?
I'm Hunter. I've been a content creator for about 10 years on and off. I used to have a YouTube channel under the name of Mad, where I made a whole bunch of different kinds of content. I've accumulated over about 5 million views on that channel. And now we're switching to podcasting, but I'm 22 years old. I'm originally from Denver, Colorado, but moved to Southern California about 2 years ago. And believe it or not, I met Sean just a couple of weeks ago, and it started from this crazy, crazy idea that I've had for a long time. But you want to go into more depth about kind of how we met and...
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like fascinating because you never really know what you'll come across on Facebook. And, I've started to realize that lately that there's a lot of people who genuinely have passions and dreams that they share online. And I happened to come across your Facebook posting looking for someone who was interested in doing a podcast. And I thought, you know what? Why not? It's nice. It's beautiful. It's refreshing to have someone who's sharing their dreams online. And if I can be a part of that, I've always felt like I had a story to share. So coming onto this podcast was pretty easy for me to do, I'd say. And I was just more of thinking like, well, what are the odds of me being selected? Like there was quite a few people who wanted this opportunity, right?
Yeah, there was about 25 people that responded to a post I made on a group chat called San Diego 20s, if you know what that is. It's a huge Facebook group with over like 20, 30,000 young adults who are trying to network. And essentially, since I moved out here, I haven't really known anybody. And that's kind of been one of my biggest struggles about moving out here is since the environment's a lot different from where I'm from, it's a lot harder to meet individuals who are like-minded or put yourself out of your comfort zone to meet those individuals. So I ended up making a post. 25 people replied to that. And Sean was the guy I wanted to work with because he has great energy.
I made the cut, guys. I really made the cut. I think it's just interesting, it's like we met through Facebook and it's just a kind of a reminder that like, once again, you never know like where you'll go through life, but you have to take chances. You have to be willing to meet new people, especially when you're meeting someone who's sharing with you a goal or a dream they have. You think back to any business, it probably started with just a dream and a goal, and it turned into something so much more. So I'm happy to be along for the ride.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. And let's talk about like what NF3 kind of means, and maybe what's kind of the origin of chess and what does Audi mean? Because the episode title is Audi, and that actually holds a lot of significance to our brand personally. Would you like to kind of let the people know what that means?
Absolutely. I think, especially when we were talking about just the conceptualization of NF3 and, chess is a really powerful game. I think there's a lot of metaphors for life that you can pick up from it. And, the title of the first episode, Adi, is the Hindu Sanskrit, origin of the word of beginning. It just, it means multiple beginnings and origin, something new. So, it's kind of fitting for the first episode of the NF3 podcast to pay homage to the beginning. This is the start of not just our personal friendship, because, we've known each other for less than a month, but it's also the
Right.
start of, this journey on NF3 as a podcast. And I'm excited.
Me too. And, Audi holds a lot more significance to our name than most people would believe, because chess originally chess originally originates in India about 1500 years ago. And by then, it wasn't a widespread game until a couple hundred years ago. You could correct me on that if I'm wrong. But as the game's kind of evolved, we've noticed a lot of metaphors about it that tailor to our personal lives. Like every move you make in chess has either a consequence or it has a more progressive movement, something that,
You're right. It's absolutely a consequence. And, consequences can be positive. They can be bad. Sometimes they're good consequences. Sometimes there's bad consequences in life. And, touching back on that chess metaphor and especially how it relates to what we're doing is just, we're taking that first move. This is our opening, right? This is our first move on the board. And, we're going to continue to make more moves after this. We're going to have more episodes, but this is going to set the foundation for episodes to come. And, it's going to be fun because we get to kind of mix it up and do whatever we want. The word Adi is the beginning, but not two beginnings are the same. You can have multiple beginnings and it can be different and have various outcomes. That's another beautiful thing about chess is, you can play the game so differently and move so many moves like in the beginning, and they all lead to a unique outcome at the end of the game. So it'll be really fun and interesting, especially to see like by the time we finish season 1 of our podcast, how we've come back. We can look back at the beginning and see how the outcome was.
and just what we've learned along the way too. Chess is just overall a very fascinating game, and in my day-to-day life, I've used a lot of inspiration from chess, just the metaphors, where whatever mistake I make, I can come back from and make a better choice in the future. Previously, I used to have a podcast. Some of you may know it as the Dirty Dogs Podcast. That one was probably not a good move at the end of the day. But what I learned from that is it's important to work with people who share your same idea and goals. Goals can be different, but the idea of it is a lot more important than having the same goals align. Because at the end of the day, if you want to get somewhere and you want to work with somebody, you want somebody to have your same ideas or bring in new ideas to expand on a topic. And now that we have a brand new podcast here, it's like the options are limitless. And I'm very excited to work with Sean.
I'm happy to be here. And, especially because like this is, obviously a new experience and we're meeting each other for the first time. So there's going to be a lot of personal opening up that we do with each other. And, I kind of talked to you about this, I think, during our first hangout, which we met up at a tea shop for those that were curious. It was pretty good. I think you actually
10 out of 10.
Yeah, you paid for my tea. So this he's a legend, guys. He covered my tea. And I just remember, thinking like, it's really fascinating how when a lot of the times, like it's a stranger that you're talking to, someone that you don't have expectation about like judgment, or you don't feel like necessarily anxiety that, they're secretly waiting for you to say something that they can use to judge you. And, you know, I mean, I've gone on like things like Omegle in the past and, you know, just had conversations with people. And I've found that, you know, sometimes when it's a stranger, it's easier to open up. So I feel like, you know, especially after our first hangout, we did some opening up. I got to learn
Yeah.
a little bit more of your personal life. And, you know, everybody has a story. That's another important part of, you know, chess as well. I mean, you think about chess, chess is a story, it's a battle that you can look back through the moves you made and you can see the story, the progression, and even see where you messed up. I play a lot of chess.com. We recently added each other, so that's going to be something we're going to do a lot of.
Heck yeah. Yeah. Would you like to tell the audience a little bit more about kind of what we did or what we kind of talked about on our first hangout, just vaguely? So we
Yeah,
kind of filled them in a little bit.
absolutely. I think our first hangout really was just kind of touching on like the hardships that kind of put us on the trajectory to where we are today. And, you know, it's really fascinating because we started off with just, you know, not knowing each other, not even knowing each other's voice, but you were courageous enough to make that initial Facebook post. And I was courageous enough to respond. And it just so happened to
Heck
kind
yeah.
of be this like vibe check that I think both of us got. And that was an initial, you know, positive vibe. And when we met in person, like I felt that same energy. You know, it was immediately like, damn, like this is someone who like I can see a future working together that's going to be successful because we both like care. We both have a similar dream and goal to, you know, do something with this podcast and share something about ourselves. So I think a lot of what we talked about during that first hangout was personal and it was, you know, just being comfortable sharing. And maybe you want to touch a little bit on like some of the things you shared.
For sure. I would say a little bit more context. Myself as a person, I'm pretty open to sharing and spreading the love. That's something I really is a core aspect of my personality. So when it comes to meeting strangers, I can sometimes be a little open, or I can sometimes be a very open listener too. And a lot of the things that we kind of touched on when we met up in person was more of our personal life, like our history, our background, what brought us to the point we are today, and what our goals and what we wanted to accomplish was. And I talked a lot about my personal life in the sense of my hardships, kind of what led us up to this day and why I'm actually in California, which so that was something Sean did not know. And Sean shared some personal information about his life that
We're
I didn't
actually
know.
neither of us are from California originally, so it's like really fascinating because we've both been in SD for like a little cool minute, but then we found out very quickly that neither of us originate from here, and you know it originates from struggle. You know, like we both had struggle, and I think struggle was one of the key fundamental topics that we talked about during our first meeting, and how those struggles made us who we are and got us to where we are today.
Absolutely. And through talking about that, the goals became a lot more apparent, and it was like, we've both struggled in our personal lives and our professional lives, so we know what it's like to struggle, and we can kind of come together and become a collective and progress together because there's a stronger will there. But as far as that first hangout goes, I'm actually more curious, like what are some of the things you want to accomplish with this podcast, or more so in your professional life?
I think professionally speaking, you know, I mean, professionalism is I guess how you perceive it, right? But I do believe in wisdom, and I believe in human guidance. And I think, you know, humanity has been around for so long. I mean, even the game of chess has been around for so long. And you think about, you know, how someone got to the top of chess, like how they became a really good player. Well, a lot of it is, you know, practice, but also the knowledge that they've learned from the people before them. You know, like some of the greatest chess players probably had inspirations that, you know, they were wanting to be like growing up in the chess world. And I feel like, you know, they watched the videos or found information that was passed to them from other people. And that's beautiful. And that's part of what I want to be able to accomplish with our podcast, is to talk about our struggles, have a comfortable place for us to open up and share. And hopefully someone listening can relate to these struggles and can also find some of that safety and comfort and just knowing that like this is a safe space where you can talk about your struggles, and our struggles are important because they allow us to become better.
And those struggles bring on a lot of connection too. Um, Especially, coming from a different state. When I moved out to California, it was a little bit of a shock to me when people were more like, more, I want to say, regressed in themselves.
Yeah.
I think one of my first conversations out here was talking to somebody my age when I first got a job. I used to work in electronics when I first moved out here. So I would basically assemble PCB boards, which was kind of cool. It's a pretty cool profession. Obviously, it was something temporary. A lot of the jobs out here are like temporary or seasonal. In San Diego, more specifically, from what I've learned at least. But I worked with a lot of younger people because there were people that were engineers. They were, specialists, assembly, stuff like that. And, one of the first conversations I had with somebody was about my personal life. And after kind of, explaining my personal life, it was a little bit scary because after that guy basically completely regressed and like avoided me at all cost. So, I went from like feeling very hopeful about living out here and, having a good opportunity to like network and meet new people and just having a breath of fresh air given the situation I moved into. But it ended up like kind of changing my perspective on people for a while. And it was really challenging because the conversations following that, it just felt very consistent. And I realize now I was looking in the wrong place all along. But, those first initial 2 years, I went crazy pretty much because when I got to the point where I am now, I had finally found a job that I could stay with consistently while I accomplish other things in life. And even my peers were very, regressed and not willing to like be open. A lot of those individuals, I think, they're very overwhelmed by the idea of emotion, and that's what makes it challenging. Have you kind of had any experiences like that, or is that?
Absolutely. Excuse my language. Let's not cuss. Absolutely. I was going to say something else, but no, 100%. I mean, you basically have described like the social climate of San Diego pretty well. And, I've been in California for a while, and I'll say like California is a really interesting place in the sense that there's all kinds of people. It's really a mixing bowl here, but you do you feel like kind of abrasive or awoken when you come across someone who just has so little regard for like human, like compassion, humanity. You meet people who they hear your struggles or you open up with them, and to them, it's not even on their mind. It's like, well, in one ear and out the other. And so, if you're someone who I feel like has compassion for people, has like, care for their fellow human, California can be kind of like an eye-opening place. And that's fine because it's not everybody deserves, or not everybody wants to engage with you in that way. So I've kind of developed my own strategy, which is just, give my energy to the people who genuinely deserve it and are reciprocating, and that was one of the refreshing things also about how we met. It was like you extended that branch first, and all I needed to do was show up and reciprocate, and show you that like I genuinely do want to do this and that I care. And it's nice, it's refreshing when you meet people like that because they're all over. You can meet them here in California. It's just kind of sparse. And I haven't really traveled to too many other states in the US, but definitely, I was born in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma feels kind of very similar, like very cut off. People struggle a little bit to have compassion for each other, but that's the beautiful thing about struggle is that everybody has it. No matter how much money you have, you could be super wealthy, you probably have some struggle. It could be your health, it could be emotional struggle.
Absolutely.
You could be dirt poor and still have struggle, but it's about how you manage your own struggle and still find space to be kind to other people and connect with other people. because that struggle can unite you guys, like how it united us.
Yeah, absolutely. I apologize, guys. I keep getting up to check the audio. We're still trying to fine tune everything and get it to just where we want it to be. So obviously it's a process, but it's interesting that you say that, because I would expect people from Oklahoma to be very like have Southern hospitality in that sense. So that's kind of surprising. Maybe how many places have you lived in the US?
I've been in a few states, so a little bit more about my personal background. I'm a foster kid. I've been in foster care from the age of 2 to around 13. And during my time in the foster system, I often traveled from home to home. And so I've found myself in a lot of different states in the Midwest, especially.
Dang.
But, it's kind of like the environment in foster care is not people first, definitely. It's not kid first. You would think it would be. And sometimes it can be. Sometimes you do genuinely have really decent people who want to home kids who are in need of that love and support.
Right.
But I ended up, unfortunately, in a lot of places where, it was devoid of love, and really they were just doing the minimum they could to house the kid, on the surface show that the kid is okay, not even, good or happy, as long as they're okay. And they collected a paycheck. So that's kind of my experience with the foster system. But I never, and still to this day, I don't let those experiences of the people who, might have wronged me when I was young, dictate how I feel about everything or everybody, because I know there's a lot of great people out there.
That's powerful. And that's something that not a lot of people talk about, is how challenging the foster system can be, and what it can do to you when you're younger. But the fact that you're able to look at the bigger picture in that sense and realize the situation you were in and understand why when you're an adult, that's great. I mean,
it's
a lot
literally
of
like chess, man. Like, you make a bad move or you're in a bad spot. If you're able to stop, take a second to reflect on it and ask yourself where you want to go or where you want to progress, then you're able to make more informed moves, better decisions later on,
Yeah. And that's powerful. I mean, I'm sure there's quite a few foster kids that are having the same experience as you did. And I think it can feel kind of overwhelming in that sense, because I mean, I personally don't have any experience with the foster system, but I could imagine how overwhelming it might feel when you're younger.
Absolutely. And it could be anything, right? Like, even just going through something or having a struggle, like, even if your struggle is not the same as, the next person's, it could be similar, and you can feel, struggle allows you to have empathy for other people in a similar situation. So, like, me going through the foster system and knowing how bad it can be, like, I definitely sometimes take on the weight of other kids who I might not have even met. But, like, if I stop and I think about it, it does, take a toll on me, just knowing out there somewhere in the world that there's another kid who unfortunately is going through something that I went through, could be worse. And, they're waiting for someone to help them. But, I think just like how I was able to take a chance to look at the moves and the direction my life was heading, I believe that it's something that everybody can learn to do.
Yeah.
So, it's just, don't let your hardship, if I could say one thing to those kids right now, I'd say, don't let your current hardship, stop you from choosing where you want to be in life. You might be temporarily held back or stopped from doing something, but the world really, truly is open when, especially you live in this country. You can find a way towards the life that you want.
Yeah, and that's powerful. What was I think the biggest lesson you learned from that whole experience?
I think the biggest lesson I learned from foster care was just, I learned a lot about, what it means to suffer, I guess. And as a kid, it's kind of weird because when you're a kid in foster care and you don't really understand some of the things that are happening to you, it's hard to see it as just pointless suffering. But then when you get older, you get a little bit wiser, you can see how some of the things, or like I can see how some of the things they did to me was kind of just pointless and unnecessary. But I think one of the biggest lessons I learned was just that, it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. And I mean, that is so true for chess.
Yeah.
Because the amount of times where, especially in the beginning, I'd start off, kind of, easy, you move a pawn or here, and then you make one bad, like, early game knight move, and then you're like, oh shit, like,
Pretty much.
position's really bad. Like, shoot, position's really bad. But, and I've learned that in life, like, it's not about how you start. You could be in a really bad position. I was in a really bad position with people who, genuinely didn't care about me.
Yeah.
But I'm so thankful that I've been able to find myself here in this room, in this moment, and it's like, you think about back to it, it's like, I never imagined as a foster kid, like, this is where I could be today, but I'm here. And so it's beautiful. It's powerful.
Amen to that. That's a great lesson. And that's a lesson that most people, even to their 40s and 50s, never understand. And
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you could have struggle happen to you, but it's how you internalize it and learn from it. It's like you could lose 100 chess games in a row, but if you don't stop to do that reflection, to think what was causing me to lose these 100 games in a row, you'll just make the same mistakes.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, things are not in your control. People have accidents or they end up in situations that they can't control, but life is about, taking what you can into control and trying to do the best you can with it.
Amen to that. Are you, what would you say that whole experience turned you into, if that kind of makes sense?
I think it just turned me into someone who wants to help other people. Like I was told my whole life that I would become like a shiesty individual myself. Like, they say foster kids will be dead or in prison by the time they're like 20, 21. That's like a common stereotype or stigma
Really?
you hear. Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah, it's something that, like, unfortunately, I had several people in my life who you would expect to kind of want to rise you up and push you to be better. They didn't believe in me. And, it even goes as far back to like my high school days. I had high school counselors that didn't believe in me.
That's messed up.
They, and how I ended up in San Diego is really funny in the first place, because I remember when I was looking for colleges, I toured UCSD, and I really just loved the weather. I loved the environment. Everything about San Diego was telling me that this place feels like it could be home. But I had counselors at the same time who were like, you should aim lower. I don't think you'll get in. And it's just crazy, like, how people will put other people down rather than take the opportunity to bring them up.
And that blows my mind, because a counselor is somebody you go to for guidance. You go to them to relinquish some of your struggle. And the fact that they were telling you that you need to set your expectations lower, that proves a lot,
Exactly. And it's not every counselor, and that's what I mean. It's like, it's not every person. Not every person is, preying on your downfall or, nefarious. It's really yin yang. And, chess is black and white for a reason. I think it's like a representation of, positive moves and negative moves. And and you think about how people play for accuracy, like, you want to be as accurate as you can and make the best moves. But I think sometimes, people see people making better moves than them, they get jealous. And
Yeah.
There's all kinds of reasons why people could turn shiesty or want to, prey on your downfall. But I think life is about more so keeping those people at a distance, knowing they exist. You have to be aware. You can't be ignorant of the fact that there's people out there who just genuinely could do you harm or want to do you harm. And you have to keep the people who are supportive, who push you, rise you up to be better. Those are the people that you keep close, and you meet new people too, like how I met you. Like, I could tell from the moment I saw your Facebook post, I was like, you know what? Like, this seems like someone who's giving off the energy of a good person, someone who wants to chase a dream, chase a goal for the right reasons,
Hell yeah. Well, thank you.
Of course.
The most fascinating thing about what you were talking about is, I think you mentioned jealousy, right? The idea of jealousy is so complex, because if you think about it, that jealousy is like all of your anger internalized to project onto somebody else. And especially when you're going through hardship, it's easy to internalize and project that onto somebody. And jealousy is one of those feelings that is hard to describe. It's very like, it's something you can more feel rather than say out loud, because it takes a lot of pride, a lot of ego to not admit you're jealous when you are. And a lot of people won't admit when they're jealous. And, you know, myself personally, I've been jealous plenty of times. Like, a little context about my backstory. Growing up, I had a pretty good childhood up until I was about 12 years old. Like, I had a great childhood. Obviously, there were a couple of things that were like kind of messed up that I don't even think I could say on this. But you know, up until I was 12, everything was fine. It was good, it was tolerable. I had no problems. And then when I turned 12, my mom got diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. And that was probably one of the toughest days of my life, cuz imagine like being a 12-year-old kid getting home from school, you have everybody you know in one room, and your mom says, "Hey, let's have a seat." And that's what I remember about that day, is everybody we knew and loved was at my house when I was just getting home from school in 5th grade. And they all sat down while my mom proceeded to tell me that she essentially had a couple years to live and the cancer could be very terminal. And, you know, what that did is it started a loop for myself that I think I'm still trying to get through. Because, granted, I've learned a lot of lessons from this experience, and I've learned to really open my heart up to others and push away the people who are not going to accept that side of me. But, you know, one of the biggest things I learned from that whole situation is that you can't control everything or control your outcome. You can only plan accordingly and try to do your best. Because my life experience when my mom went through cancer the first time was very horrendous. I gotta say, that was probably some of the darkest years of my life. And what kind of made it dark was after kind of getting to accept that she could pass away in a couple years, there were external factors just coming at me all at once. Like, my parents, they began to argue and fight a lot, and there was some stuff that went on between them that I probably shouldn't say on here, but you know, it was tough because my perspective of it was, okay, we're going to try chemo, it's going to get better. But I never expected the outside circumstances to be so messed up. When I went through middle school and elementary, I used to have kids, they would come up to me and they would harass me for my mom being sick. So I was already trying to help my mom get through this, and it was me and her most of the time. Like, my sister and my dad were never really around that time. So it was me and my mom. And everybody just harassed me for it. Which
kids are crazy.
Yeah. Speaking of kids, you want to tell us like your experience with he runs a esports team, or he's a teacher for an esports team. But tell them about like just how malicious kids can be.
Man, the kids can be super malicious. Like, I do coach Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for the Nintendo Switch. Anybody who knows that game, you're a goat. A lot of people know that game, but Super Smash is something I've always really been a fan of. And I remember back to the days when I wanted to be a pro gamer. It was like one of those games where like I'd play and I'm like, I could be pro at this.
Oh yeah.
And then I'd watch videos of like MKLeo, and I'd like, no, it's not for me. But I teach kids the game. They really like the game, but I think kids struggle with being aware of the cruelty. The cruelty is not something that they're super like aware of. And I feel like that's when you get into like the psycho kid territory, is when like they are aware of what cruelty
Yeah.
is and they like enjoy it. And I've recently saw this documentary on it. We don't need to pigeonhole into that, but the kids at my school, I think sometimes they're cruel to each other and they don't realize it. And they say mean things. Kids are really quick to point out insecurity. They're really quick to point out things that are affecting a kid or another kid, especially outside of their personal life.
Yeah. That's a very good point. And that's not something that everybody thinks about every day. And being a preteen or a teenager is a very weird time too. You're trying to understand yourself. You're trying to figure out what's your place in the world. And it can become a projection to hurt others. But
Yeah, I got bullied a lot in school growing up too. But the thing I realized I was in the same school for close to 6 years. I realized that a lot of the same kids that were, bullying me or picking on my insecurities about, being a foster kid or whatever I had going on, a lot of those same kids had their own struggle, and that's what I mean. It's like struggle can make you or it can break you. Struggle can be the thing that brings out the best or worst in people. And even, like myself, like sometimes I get frustrated. I struggle with something. I get frustrated and I have to remind myself, that's not anybody's fault. Your own struggle, it's not anything that you want to internalize and take out on other people. But kids, they're, unfortunately, they're not as like well versed in thought. They're not thinking through these things. So to them, they take a lot of their own struggle and they put it onto other kids.
yeah, I had no idea you got bullied too.
Yeah, I got bullied really bad. I used to have like a huge fro. Like my hair's kind of crazy
That's
now.
kind of
But
sick though.
I had kids like throw gum in it, and I was just like,
Oh,
bruh.
that's messed up.
Yeah, and I think kids today are a lot more cruel than they were like when I was a kid. Because like, I remember playing, like your Beyblades, your Bakugans, and a lot of squabbles with kids over, toys and things that didn't really matter. But, your story is particularly heinous because I think as much as I've seen kids be cruel, I've also seen kids who are very compassionate and very understanding.
Absolutely.
And something like, your mother being, potentially sick to a fatal degree, or just going through cancer in general. Like, I would expect that, I actually have met some kids that I know would be compassionate and understanding about that
Yeah.
circumstance. And they wouldn't, do that. But, like I said, it's yin and yang. There's black and white. There's good kids. There's kids that are still trying to figure out how to have humanity.
Yeah. And, that can be challenging, especially since some of those kids could have a very terrible personal life and they bring that to, their school or wherever they're at.
Yeah. I mean, I was the kid who was flipping desks, bro. I'm not even going to lie. Like, I was the kid who you probably thought was going to be super crazy and like a psycho growing up. But it's just, I think back onto all of the things that I did and all of the, behavior that I had. And, I've internalized it. I've already come to accept that, like, that wasn't the answer. But, at the time, like, when you're a kid, like, it feels like the answer. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and it's just you act out in order to feel something, to get attention, to have someone actually care. Because when you're acting out and, you're being punished or sent to the principal's office or whatever, at least like, someone's caring, like they're actively giving you that attention that you might be seeking. And I know as a kid, I was definitely one of those kids who sought it out, but I learned, and I'm very thankful that I did have the people I did have in my life who
Amen.
were
man.
able to help that, because it's a lot of the parents' job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And especially not having your parents there in the moment too makes it 100 times more difficult. I also remember when my mom was first going through cancer, I didn't really have my parents around as much. Like my mom, she was on a lot of medication because going through chemotherapy is not only extremely painful, but it also makes you extremely tired and sick.
Yeah, I have a friend. He's a current professional bodybuilder, and like he had leukemia for like almost 2 years while he was still, doing bodybuilding. And they kept telling him it was like sciatica pain. He was having really bad pain through his legs, and it essentially got to the point where one day during a workout, he just had to be rushed to the ambulance because he was so
Dang.
sick. And I've seen, how like he has done with like the chemo, and it's bad. It's nasty stuff, man. And
It really
it
is.
changes you. It's hard to be yourself while also going through something like that. So my buddy, he smokes a lot. That's how he
Yeah.
smokes a lot of rosin, a lot of resin.
Hell yeah. I mean, that's probably the best option in that situation, to be honest. Like, my mom personally, that's her thing. And that works for her. It's probably the most effective thing that works for her. But
Amen to the reschedulization that just happened. Making it easier for people to have holistic ways to treat their, ailments is, I think, one of the most progressive things that we can do for modern society is just, there's in the present day in life, there's so many struggles that people have. Like, we bring it back to like the possibility that there's another kid out there who's going through a similar foster experience that I had. We live in 2026. We should be able to solve that. You know what I mean? I think for whatever struggle or problem that like there is in the world, if we have more people thinking of solutions and how to, better those people in those positions, like we should be able to do it. And I think definitely allowing medicine, like weed to be a lot more accessible for people who use it as medicine is a step in the right direction.
yeah,
It's good for your mother.
yeah. And, that's really the big word. I think, like, when it comes to the medicinal properties of it, it should be widely accessible to people with pain.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of cannabinoids, CBD, THCA, THCD, like all of these different things, and some of them are not even psychoactive. Like I recently, put CBD on I've had double knee surgery at 21.
Yeah.
We can talk about that and
Yeah.
we'll save that little bit for another episode because I think there's definitely some life lessons we can talk about it, and I know we're kind of getting close to time. Our next episode, you want to kind of hint to what it's going to be about? Because I think this story will be perfect for the next episode.
Well, so we've kind of touched on jealousy a little bit, but ego is a really big deal.
Ego, that's going to be the topic for the next episode. We're going to go into some personal experiences with ego and talk about, how that's shaped our life. Because chess ego is a really big thing. Like especially in my beginning in chess, I had really bad chess ego. But it's because I played with someone who also had really bad chess ego.
Right.
So we just field each other. Every time I'd make a bad move, he'd be like, bad move, bad move. Okay move.
Oh,
You're getting checkmated.
that's always the worst, especially when you're trying to learn the game. Yeah. But I just think like for people, especially like you, the double knee surgery, that's very painful.
Yeah, CBD helped a lot with that. Like I said, weed has so many medicinal purposes outside of just the psychoactive component.
Yeah.
And CBD, was a game changer for me. I was actually recommended that to me by another person. And that's why I love, people as well, because we get to share and recommend things to each other that, you might not have considered before, but definitely helped me with my surgery pain.
Absolutely. And, the countless amount of opioids that people overdose on all the time. And the thing about opioids is it's very easy to build up a tolerance. And that's the dangerous part, is because you can build up such a high tolerance to it very quickly, you tend to take more to get out of pain. And that can be very dangerous because I can just tell you in my profession, we have a lot of people that overdose. And it's not even just people on the street. It can be people at home or anywhere. And it's easier to abuse those opioids and with minimal gain from it. So having something that you can purchase with a medical card or just purchase for pain in general, it helps out a lot. And in my opinion, it's more welcome to the world of medicine than all these highly sought after pharmaceutical drugs like Dilaudid or Oxycodone.
Yeah, I say stay away from the man-made stuff. If it's not grown, if you can't grow it in soil, then it's risky. And that's why I love other cultures too, because there's a lot of cultures. I have some friends who study actually like Chinese medicine.
Wow.
And they're really big into like natural remedies, things that you can, grab from the ground, that are not, made in a synthetic lab, that are going to, cause you to feel like you're dying. So
Yeah.
alternatives exist for out there for all kinds of things. And I think you kind of bringing it back to chess too. It's another good thing, or another good metaphor about chess, is that you're never really pigeonholed into making one move, and unless obviously you're getting like checkmated or something.
Right.
But you have the ability to kind of explore options, explore moves, and I think people should definitely be aware of that when it comes to like medicine. Medicine is not something that you need to just one-stop shop. My doctor said it, so it's what I should do. No, explore there. Go look into medicine. Talk to people who have had similar struggles. Connect with people who can offer different remedies and ailments to your pain.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said that when you moved out to California, you went to UCSD. You want to talk a little bit more about your experience at UCSD?
Yeah, UCSD was a great school. I mean, I love UCSD, but my experience at UCSD was definitely kind of a struggle. I've struggled my entire life up until this point. I really do feel like it, because my childhood was a struggle with foster care. And then even when I got to, my primary school, middle school, and high school was a struggle, because I was so constantly like under stress that like if I didn't achieve the highest possible grades, if I didn't do all of these things, that like my life would be like meaningless. And that's kind of what, once again, when I talked about the people who didn't believe in me, like the counselors that didn't believe in me, it was people like that kind of fueled this, I wouldn't say always healthy side of me, that prioritized like school and my like, I guess, personal well-being over everything else. And there were some things that really came at a detriment, like my sleep. Sleep was a really big one I sacrificed in high school. So most days I was getting like 4 hours of sleep, but I'd still play like 5 hours of video games. So it's pretty solid. When I got to UCSD, I really wanted to flip that script. I was tired of putting academics first. I was tired of feeling like if I didn't have an A+ in this class, like I was going to be, worthless. And actually, when I got to UCSD, that was the first time I ever failed a class in
Really?
all of my educational career.
That's pretty impressive.
And I remember when I failed that class, I thought I was like cooked. I was like, oh my God, like I'm not made for college. Like I'm not fit. The imposter syndrome really kicked in. And I was just like, yeah, this is where I flunk out. But, I think that was a struggle. And just like how we've been talking about this entire episode, it was something that, as I explored myself more and I, connected with more people, I realized that it's okay. Like you're not any worse off failing a class than someone who passed the class. It's
Right.
fine to stumble, to make mistakes, to feel like, you can go down a different route. And I think UCSD was one of the places where that kind of really opened up to me. It was the realization that like, I don't live with my parents anymore. I'm not sharing a room with my little brother. There's no one who's pulling me, into the class to take the test. It's my life. That was my first taste of this is my life. What I do with it is up to me. And I graduated from UCSD, got my degree in communications.
Heck yeah.
3.46 GPA, by the way. And
Nice.
that was with double knee surgery, graduating as a third year.
Yeah, that's pretty
And
impressive.
all the other crazy crap that I had happen to me. UCSD was a lot more life hard than it was academic hard. But I still think the academic side of things, especially like a quarter system, being forced to learn everything in 10 weeks, is kind of crazy. I think personally education could use a lot of reforms, but
Yeah.
I think college is great for that life experience.
It definitely it gives you some more perspective into yourself, and it helps. I think for a lot of people, it helps them kind of learn who they are and what kind of people they want to be around. Like for me personally, I didn't go to college right out of high school. I'm going to go to college now, but I took a lot of that time to kind of figure out where I want to be in my life. And I'll say, to be honest, I learned a lot of very important lessons, even just in these past 2 years. I think I've learned more than I have learned in my entire life. And that's saying a lot. But right out of high school, I went to trade school for a month, and then I dropped out because I realized it was kind of a scam for what I was going for.
What were you doing trade school for? I'm curious.
Diesel technician.
Diesel technician. Damn, that sounds like there's some money in there.
The tools are really expensive, but depending on who you ask, it's good. But
Yeah.
you basically work on semis or like big, heavy equipment on construction sites. You do stuff like that, which is kind of cool. Or you can even do boats, which
It seems like there's like a STEM side of it too. Like I used to really love STEM and I used to really be into science, but then high school and just how like, once again, how strung I was most of the time just with stress really just killed all love for wanting to go into like a scientific career just because I hated it by the time I was done with high school, but now I kind of miss it, and every time I hear someone who's, doing something engineering or science related, I'm like a little jealous. Sounds kind of fun to work on some trucks, some big diesel trucks.
Yeah, I would say it's fun for the right person to be a mechanic for sure, be in that type of trade. There's definitely some great people at it. And I've met a lot of really cool people who love to work on big semi trucks and even automotive cars. A couple of my good buddies too. But, I went to school for a month with one of my closest friends out in Denver. So we both went up to school in Wyoming for that month. And then after that, we kind of read through the curriculum and the textbook. We kind of realized we were being shimmed out of our like 40 grand. So I dropped out. I worked a bunch of jobs for the past 3 years. I landed a job at Denver International Airport as a operations supervisor for Frontier Airlines. And, I thought that was going to be it. I thought I made it. I made good money. I was secure. And I was really pushing myself health-wise, mentality-wise. And that's around the time I started my first podcast too. And then obviously as life happens, things happen, which kind of pushed me out here to California to be with my mom, who got re-diagnosed in 2022 with stage 4 cancer. So I'm out here in California to essentially be close if anything is needed. But, at that time in my life, right before I moved out here, I lived on my own. I was doing great. And then moving here was such a culture shock. And I gotta say, like, it's been a really crappy but cool process to see just kind of how I'm turning into a better person with more wisdom. I kind of have a better idea of where I want to take myself. And a lot of it involves doing something with media. And obviously, I really want to get my degree, so I have something to fall back on.
Absolutely. I mean, for anybody who's in the process of getting their degree, depending on what you get your degree on, it might not be much of a fallback. But I think there is something really rewarding about, just going through college. And college, whatever people want to say about it. Like, I'm wearing my class ring right now, actually. I love it. Let
me see.
Yes, sir. Got an emerald for my birthstone.
Yeah.
UCSD 2022.
Dude, that's like...
But, I feel like college, whatever you do, is like, it's like what you get out of it, It's kind of like an orange, and however much juice you squeeze out of it really is dependent on you.
Yeah.
And I know some people who, went to UCSD and they kind of, it's just a stop in the road. They go on for more education and then do something. But for some people, UCSD is kind of like, at least for me, it was really like a big pivotal moment in my life that helped me feel like kind of 5x my wisdom. I went through a lot. I had some struggles during UCSD, and I made it out the other end feeling wiser, more prepared for this next phase of my life. 25 onward is kind of scary. I feel like, similar to you, I'm looking for that, stability, nice paying job, and the freedom and the flexibility to continue to work on, stuff like this, the stuff that I'm actually passionate about and I love.
Stuff that could potentially become the passion project that you can work on every day.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. And, I think just doing it is the fun part.
Yeah.
Like, it's about having fun too. Like, this is fun for me. Like, this is fun for both of us. Like, we wouldn't be here otherwise. So continuing to work hard in our personal lives, have stability, overcome these struggles, navigate life. and still have fun doing it, make time to show up, be present, and share with you guys. Like, we do this for you as well.
Absolutely. And it's all about getting to know everybody on a personal level. But if you'd like to hear, I could tell you about my last podcast and kind of what went wrong.
Absolutely. I do want to get into that.
We do got a little bit of time, so we got about 10 minutes, so I could share.
Fire it.
Cool. So I used to have a podcast. It was called the Dirty Dogs Podcast, as I said earlier. And I started it with one of my friends, one of my good friends at the time, I will say. And we were excited. We started out with lavalier mics. So we just had 2 iPhones and a lavalier mic. We had no backdrop, no microphones other than the lav mic, and that was it. That was our setup.
We didn't a long way.
Yeah. Evolving one step at a time. It's like Darwin's theory of evolution. But we didn't have any of that. We didn't even make a script. Like, we didn't have some sort of like guide. We just freeballed it. And, an episode that worked. The second episode, not so much. And then it started to decline. But, what kind of ended that podcast was I was working about 60 hours a week, and I would get home on my days off. I would edit, I'd produce, I would make the thumbnail. I'd do pretty much everything for the show. I'd upload it. And then my partner, he wouldn't even help. Let alone he started like trash talking me in front of all of our audience, trying to get, just because he was feeling resentful that I was getting kind of irritated because, we were doing it for a good 3-4 months. And every time it was like I would spend hours just making the stuff perfect. And then it would be like it wasn't really a partnership. It was more like it's kind of like a relationship, in business. You want to make sure it's, equally distributed in the sense of like each person puts in their weight. Maybe if it's not the same, but puts in their weight regardless.
Yeah. I think everybody has to have something of value that they can, just bring. And unfortunately, unless you're, like Drake or like a multi-millionaire and just standing in a room, can make you money. Like, you kind of got to put in the work. So it's
Absolutely.
really unfortunate that you kind of got stuck with a partner who, you gave it a pretty decent span of time to like
Right.
try to get things back on
Right.
track, like 3 months while working 60-hour weeks, and not to mention any of the other stress or struggle you might have been juggling, to just kind of have that culminate with a partner who was trying to diss you in front of the audience. Like, that's crazy.
Pretty much. And it's even crazier about that is I would work my 12-hour shift. I would get off of work. I would go to the gym for an hour and a half. And work was an hour drive away. So I'd come home, go to sleep, wake up, go to work. And then on my days off, I'd spend like 10 to 12 hours just editing. So it was like that every day off I'd get for 3 months. And then I look and my friend's like, he's out at bars. He's out in the mountains, like smoking weed. And I in my head, I'm like, because he came up to me, he's like, he really wanted to start the podcast, and he's very passionate about it. And so I took his word for it. And then when we got the ball rolling, I could kind of see maybe it wasn't the best idea. And this didn't just happen to me. I've had a couple other friends that have started legitimate businesses, and he basically did the same thing. So, that's one thing that I'm very excited to work on with you, is because you are actually very excited about this, like I am.
I'm excited. I'm here.
And I gotta say, Sean's like a communications genius. When we were working on I would say when
He's
we were
flattering me, guys, buttering me up. He's like, next episode, now we need you to do something crazy.
Yeah.
I'll do a handstand on the table.
The whole episode, we gotta film it upside down.
Yeah. And, we want to, I think we've already touched on this, but like before we film our next episodes, like we're going to do hangouts. It's going to be things that like I'm going to choose, that he's going to choose. So we'll get to go back and forth. And as we get further into the season, it'll be really fun to kind of talk about some of these things that we have planned. You know, for me, I'm trying to take us to the gun range. That's one of the ones I have on the list. So I can't wait to do that. That's going to be fun.
That's probably going to be the coolest thing we get to do.
Yeah, it just, it's kind of mind blowing that like you had someone who, passion is passion, right? Words are words, but if you don't have the action and the drive to just the discipline, because it's discipline, right? 100%. That's what it kind of comes down to. If you don't have the discipline to back up the passion with actual action and movement, then it'll just fall flat. And as someone who spent the last 3 years building their physique in the gym, might not look it, but I'm pretty well built. It's the discipline that has kept me going, even when the days where I look in the mirror and I'm like, you know what, like, does it really matter my abs? Like, if I have popping abs, does it matter how big my, even on the days when you're not having passion for what you're doing, the discipline is what keeps you going. Keeps you going.
And, from that experience, I learned so much. In fact, everything we're doing now, I feel a lot more confident in what it's going to turn out to be.
It's because you have two people who actually genuinely, regardless of how it starts, want to make it better.
Yeah.
One move at a time.
One move. I see what you did there.
There you go. One move at a time.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to say before we sign off?
Honestly, I really just want to say, like, this is great. I feel like, we're two people who've known each other for less than 2 weeks, and we're building authentic friendship, authentic partnership right here live on camera. And we're talking about things that, really do matter and affect people's lives. And, even just this first episode, some of the personal stories that we've shared, like, hopefully the goal is that these are stories that when you guys listen to, if you're going through something similar, that, you feel solidarity and knowing that, there's other people out there who've also gone through struggle and are here helping you navigate it one move at a time. And it'll be really fun as we start to talk more about ourselves, but also other things going on in the world. Because, we could talk forever about contemporary issues, but got to start somewhere, and we're going to start with getting to know each other.
Absolutely. And it's going to be one hell of a ride, especially on camera, because since we've only known each other for a short amount of time, it's like, when we film an episode, we're basically getting to know each other, not just on a surface level, but a more personal level. And it's going to be crazy to see how we progress through this, as a team.
Yeah, it's not scripted, guys. You guys will genuinely see two people who've known each other for less than like a few weeks get to know each other very well and build a beautiful partnership together. So I'm glad that you guys are along for the ride. I'm glad that I'm here. And out of 25 people, I was the one who's last man standing.
Yeah, he's the best one. Well, guys, I just want to say, tune in to the next episode. We're going to be talking about ego and a whole bunch of other things that you might want to listen to, because there could be some knowledge in there that moves you forward one move at a time. But blending chess with reality is the theme of this podcast. And I'm Hunter, and this is Sean.
It's been a pleasure, guys. NF3 is a metaphor for life. Chess is a metaphor for life. And we hope that you guys tune in for the next episode so we can talk about ego and explore how that also is a part of navigating this beautiful world we live in.
Absolutely. Don't forget to check out the socials. Yes. We're going to be posting a bunch on there, hopefully. But feel free to check our Instagram. We have a TikTok, a Snapchat. We're getting a Facebook. We have a YouTube. We also have multiple audio platforms for our audio podcast. We're mainly going to produce the video podcasts on YouTube. So if you're on Spotify, Apple Music, or Audible, feel free to go check it out on YouTube to get more of a emotional eye-to-eye podcast. That's what I recommend, and I believe it's probably the best way to digest us. But yeah, make sure to check out all our socials. And this is Hunter and Sean.
This is Sean signing off, guys.